We're going to begin in The Hague, where the International Court of Justice has begun a series of hearings on Israel's illegal occupation of Palestine. For 5 days, the UN's highest court will be considering the legal implications of Israel's policies and actions and what they mean for all other UN member states. The Palestinians' representatives had 3 hours to make their opening case. First up was Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki.
I stand before you as 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza. Half of them children are besieged and bombed, killed and maimed, starved and displaced. As more than 3.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are subjected to colonization of their territory. There was life on this land. There was a political life, a cultural life, a social life, a religious life. It had schools and universities, cinemas and cultural halls. It had villages and villagers, families and communities whose life was disrupted by the impact of a promise made thousands of miles away over 100 years ago.
Occupation can only be a temporary state of affairs. A permanent occupation is a legal oxymoron. Mr. President, what makes Israel's ongoing occupation of the Palestinian territory unlawful is precisely its permanent character.
Bernard, let's go back to what we were hearing about the International Court of Justice and the 3 hours of representations that were made by the Palestinian delegation. This is a very significant case, isn't it? Just talk to us, for viewers who are just joining us, why it's so significant and what's been happening.
Well, it's significant in scope and scale. 52 states will offer testimony, opinion here at the International Court of Justice over the next 6 days, and 3 international organisations. And it's off the back of a request to the UN General Assembly back in 2022 that asking the court to deliver an opinion on whether on the legality of Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. And I'm joined now by Michael Link, who's a former UN Special Rapporteur on the Palestinian territories. Michael, thanks very much for joining us. It was very sort of compelling testimony we heard there, clear and concise, that Israel's occupation is illegal. The courts could not resist to return an opinion concurring with that.
Well, let's hope. I mean, remember, they've got 5 more days of arguments to hear, but the vast majority of the states who are appearing over the next 5 days are going to be arguing in favor of an expansive answer to the advisory opinion question being put to it by the General Assembly. So I'm hopeful that the court will find in the end this is an illegal occupation and order Israel to end it completely, immediately and unconditionally.
Of course, Israel has ignored the World Court before over the separation wall, which is now extended. What pressure could there possibly be on Israel, even if the court issues this opinion saying the occupation is illegal?
Look, Israel probably will ignore this. Israel has ignored, in many ways, the provisional measures that were issued last month by the court with respect to the case brought by South Africa. But to now have the affixation, the adjective illegal put before the occupation, if that is indeed what the court winds up ruling in several months' time, would wind up further delegitimizing Israel's continued rule. We've already heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu that there will be no Palestinian state, that Israel will retain sovereignty and security from the Mediterranean to the Jordan River. That's going to be increasingly harder to be able to maintain in the face of both legal opinion as well as popular opinion around the world.
Well, but the ICJ has said its opinion carries significant moral weight. Yeah. Is there enough moral weight for Israel to act on it, to behave any differently than it is now?
Well, think of the options that the United Nations would then have if the court rules that this is an illegal occupation in several months' time. This would go back to the General Assembly, who had asked for the advisory opinion. They would likely pass a resolution in favor of endorsing what the court has done, and then either it or the Security Council will then be compelled to want to take action to decide what steps should be taken to compel Israel to end the illegal occupation.
One last question, Michael. The US is obviously the most influential state when it comes to Israel. Could the US be persuaded to behave any differently if the court issues this opinion that the occupation is illegal?
Well, let's remember that President Biden has been talking about a two-state solution since he became president, and has been talking about a two-state solution in the 4 months that this war has been going on. This would be the ultimate test as to whether or not the United States lives up to its word with respect to its claimed adherence to international law, to trying to force an irreversible path to a two-state solution.
Michael Link, thank you very much for joining us. So the court will continue hearing from 52 states over the next 6 days. Its opinion, it's not a legally abiding opinion, but it carries significant moral authority, the ICJ says. But it could be perhaps not before the end of the year that the court issues that opinion.
Bernard Smith, that in The Hague, outside the International Court of Justice. Bernard, thank you very much.